We're back. Back to BuzzPuck. Sorry, our if that was weird for a second there, our recording thing was a little strange for a moment. But we're back to BuzzPucks.
And we only do it live.
Welcome back, and we only do it live. I'm Bert.
I'm Clay.
And we're back at the same puck time, same puck place as last time.
Alrighty. Stealing my half.
This time, we are continuing on with our division previews, and we're going to do the Central Division this time. What are we drinking today, Clay?
We are drinking Banana Stand Hefeweizen by Reverie Brewing Company.
Hell yeah.
Out of Newtown, Connecticut.
Newtown.
This is one of the best can arts I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's just a
It is a
banana
banana.
holding a pint of beer.
Yeah, like
it's awesome.
I love it. And their logo is great.
I wonder if it tastes like banana.
No, I doubt it. Their logo for Reverie is pretty
yeah,
cool
look
too.
at that.
It is a keg as a Zeppelin.
It's a Zeppelin, yeah. What's our second beer?
Our second beer is also out of Connecticut. It is called Crunchy Roll. It is a rice lager out of Alvarium Beer Company, which is in New Britain, Connecticut.
That's right. In case you guys
had this one before, it is very
well,
yummy.
we've had it in our personal life. I don't know that we had it on the podcast.
Correct.
Before.
I've had this one before. It's very yummy.
In case you guys forgot, because I'll say this again because this is a separate episode than the first episode that we're recording. We're doing it in the same day, but we got a mix and match, a 6-pack of local-ish beer to us.
The Pacific left us toasty.
Yeah, we're a little toasty, so sorry if it's already pretty obvious. But we're skipping through beers as we go, and we're gonna just get continually more drunk as we do these preview episodes.
What do you want to start with?
What do you mean? Oh, let's start with the banana stand because I haven't had the banana stand. I have had the Crunchy Rolls.
He's just so happy to hand.
He's just so happy to just be drunk as a beer. I hope it tastes like banana. I'd be very excited. Maybe a little banana.
No,
because
it says
it's Hefeweizen. You're right. Yeah.
There's always money in the banana stand, but there's no bananas in this beer.
I was just trying to force myself to believe that there was banana in this beer.
Well, I'm not a fan of banana, so I would.
Oh, are you not? Oh, interesting.
Banana flavor's fine. I tried to see if I still
like the synthetic banana flavor.
Yeah, I tried to see if I actually like
a banana.
Like banana. I had some.
It does not. It's weird because
I had some on my cereal.
Synthetic banana doesn't taste like real banana.
It's an older species of banana.
Yeah.
So bananas are farmed. It's a graft and basically a clone.
Mm-hmm. You guys are learning not about hockey right now.
Right. So it's a clone, which leaves it very susceptible to diseases. So the synthetic flavor is from a previous species
from an ancient banana
that basically our parents and grandparents ate.
I'll be honest, I do like it better.
It got wiped out by a fungus.
I see.
So they still exist, but they are not.
R.I.P.
They're not commercially viable. So we have this new one, which
it's very bland.
Doesn't last. It's not going to last much longer. We have about 10 more years of that banana.
Maybe we'll have a new banana.
Probably because the same thing is happening. So banana crops,
farming's crazy.
It's crazy. I think only South America has not been hit by this said disease. I'm talking about out of my butt is completely wrong. Could be completely wrong, but
like I said, we're still toasty from the Pacific episode.
There is a blight that is
or like Clay said, I didn't say it.
That is threatening the current bananas that we eat.
That's interesting.
Right?
That is interesting. You're welcome, you guys. Well, we're going to talk about the Central Division in this episode, and I'm going to do most of the talking. We're going to start. I'm doing my teams, both in the Central Division and the Metropolitan Division, in reverse standing order.
Ooh.
So we're going to start with the bad teams.
Worst first,
and you know it's the Arizona Coyotes. Since we last talked to you guys on the 19th of July, not including the Pacific episode, they re-signed Lawson Krause to a 5-year, $4.3 million per year. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, he played okay for them. They're gonna, yeah. Well, we'll get to them in a second. They added a lot of draft picks in the offseason.
They really did.
They didn't do too much else past that.
No.
Yeah, they lost Kessel to Vegas.
They've committed
if
to
you
the
want to
tank.
call that a key loss, but they absolutely committed to the tank. They got the 3rd overall draft pick in this past draft where they took Logan Cooley, who immediately got injured, like within a couple of weeks after the draft, which sucks. So we hope he heals well.
He went to the boards wrong.
Yeah, he busted up his leg in some sort of way, but he's only 18. Hopefully he recovers very well from that. I hope, because he is a Western Pennsylvania boy just like me. I love the continued connection of Pittsburgh to the overall hockey NHL
football.
league / football
Worlds.
Yeah, football worlds. Yeah, like I said, I guess you can call Kessel a key loss. He didn't have a particularly good season last year, but
44 assists.
44 assists on a pretty bad team. So, just kind of looking at their lineup, they have a pretty young team outside of guys like
Andrew Ladd,
and I guess Zach their entire bottom line essentially is
Nick Bukestad,
Andrew Ladd, Nick Bukestad, Zach Cassian. They're all 30-plus years old. Andrew Ladd is 36 years old. The rest of their team...
I mean, even though Ghost Bear is only 29.
Ghost Bear, yeah. He actually didn't have a bad season for them last year.
No, he didn't.
14 goals and 37 assists, yeah. Again, we're looking at Cap Friendly's projected lineups, projected depth charts of the teams that we're talking about. So, these are subject to change by the beginning of the season. Some trades, some PTOs might work out. You never know. Jake Chychrun is still on this team, probably the best player on this team.
Yeah, a lot of people are trying to get him, but I think Arizona is asking a lot.
Well, they should. I mean,
he's
he's only 24, and he's a pretty good defenseman. He missed a solid chunk of the season last year, but what are you gonna do? Injuries happen. They're gonna be bad again next year. There's no question about that. They're still kind of building for the future. Their draft was pretty good. They got Cooley. They had another top 10 pick, didn't they? Or top 15 pick, maybe?
I think they did.
I don't remember. Geeky. Geeky was their other pick.
Yeah.
The other Geeky. Morgan Geeky is on Seattle.
Yep. Is it Nick?
Is it Nick Geeky? Hold on. We'll find him in just a second. His brother... Oh, my God. Cap Friendly. Where is he? Did they not sign him to... Anyway. Cooley and Geeky were their top picks.
Connor
Geeky, thank you.
Connor Geeky got hurt.
Good job. He is also hurt. Oh, Logan Cooley is not listed as injured, but Connor Geeky and Logan Cooley could be their top 2 centers moving forward. They were both extremely high draft picks. Cooley got taken at 3. And Geeky got taken at 11. So that could be a big boon for them moving forward, because otherwise their centers are terrible. Jack McBain got traded to them from, I believe, Minnesota months ago at this point. But they're going to be bad. They're not going to be anywhere near
Makes me just
the
think
playoffs.
of The Simpsons. McBain.
Oh, McBain. They'll probably be bottom of the division again.
Yeah. I
would imagine. They're not trying too hard at this point because they're playing at a college rink.
Here's the thing. They've
their ticket sales are actually up 50% since moving to Arizona State.
Yeah.
Again, as Clay pointed out last year, and I do think it might be true, some of the younger guys on this team might be pretty down to play at like a college rink. Because there will be girls of their own age there that'll just be at the games because they have nothing else to do.
And it's Arizona State.
Which is, I don't know if it is anymore, but it was definitely rated as one of the top party schools in recent history.
There's no way it's still not.
It's up there.
Almost all schools are party schools, but
Certainly. But Arizona State, I don't know who does that rating, but like, it was at least a few years ago, it was rated as the top party school in the nation. So here's the thing: Logan Cooley and Connor Geekie might have a great time at Arizona State.
Great time.
Yeah, they might not have a great season statistically.
All right, so. Barrett Hayton is 22. Nathan Smith is 23. Yeah. Jack McBain is 22.
Yeah.
And even some of these guys in the mid-20s.
Yeah, so not to be creeps, but, like, they might have a good time playing at Arizona State because they could, like, go to the parties and be like, I play for the Coyotes.
Yeah.
And not the Sun Devils. I play for a pro team. And I make money.
And the Sun Devils logos are great.
Our Sun Devils logo is pretty cool.
It's super cool.
So they're sharing that rank with the Sun Devils this next season, or the next couple of seasons. I do think did they get a rink deal? I think they did get an arena deal set, but it won't be built for a couple of years, I think.
I don't know if it's...
I don't know if it's set. I don't know if it's set.
I don't think it's set.
I'll take that back. I don't think it's set. But, excuse me. They're up in the air. But yeah, they're going to be bad.
Yep.
Pretty bad. Another team that's going to be pretty bad.
They're going to take points away from good teams, though, because that's what they did.
The Coyotes?
That's what they did last season.
At the end of last season, they did. Yeah. But a team that might be essentially in the same boat as the Chicago Blackhawks.
But I thought the Chicago Blackhawks were fine.
Clay, you remember at the beginning of last season when I was like, this team absolutely thinks it's better than it is?
I mean, you never stop saying it, so yeah.
I'll never stop saying it. I think this year they finally were like, oh, we're bad. Yeah, we're bad. We should just accept that. And yeah, the Chicago Blackhawks, since last we spoke, they did re-sign Caleb Jones and Philippe Kurashev. So they'll be back, I guess. They did sign legend Jack Johnson to a 1-year, $950K.
That is Stanley Cup champion.
That's Stanley
Jack
Cup
Johnson.
Champion Jack Johnson. They did sign him. Their key additions in this offseason are, I guess, Max Domi and Andreas Athanasiou and Peter Mrazek.
Yep.
I guess, if you want to call those guys key additions. They did trade off DeBrincat to Ottawa. Strome left for Washington.
Nothing.
Yeah, well, for draft picks, but essentially nothing. Strome went to Washington. Kubalik signed in Detroit. And Kirby Dach, they traded to Montreal.
Yep, we'll talk about two of those next episode.
Yeah, what sucks is, like, that's a bunch of, like, okay to really good young guys. Dach underperformed. DeBrincat, on the other hand, scored 40 goals in back-to-back seasons for you on a bad teams. And they traded him to Ottawa for nothing. Just draft picks, so that's just like a song and a prayer at that point.
I don't even think it was good draft picks.
It was a first and like a second and third or something like that.
You get two firsts for DeBrincat.
They didn't, though.
I know.
They didn't get that.
I know.
Now, to their credit, going into the most current draft, Chicago had no first-round draft picks, and I think they ended up with 3. Because they got one in the Dach trade, too, and then one in the Mrazek trade as well to take Mrazek. I don't know. I think they have definitely decided we're giving up at this point. Chicago is going to be very bad next year. I think if they're smart, they'll try to trade Patrick Kane at least by the trade deadline next year.
Yeah.
I would eat half of his contract and then trade him for as much as you possibly can.
No one's going to take Taves.
No one's going to take Taves, unfortunately. So you'll just have to wait out that contract. But that ends this season.
Yeah.
After this season. Kane's also ends after this season, but he had 92 points last year. You could trade him for something.
his contract ends, which is why you want to sell him.
That's an even better sell, and just be like, give us a first and second round draft pick for
a rental
or whatever, They signed Anthony Ciu and Max Domi for 1 year, I believe. $3 million each. Man, their team is just really bad.
They have
you got to call into question that Seth Jones contract. Like, what is that?
Oh yeah.
Like, what? Why did you do that last year? Now, to be fair, Stan Bowman signed that.
Yeah.
And he's not there anymore.
Nope.
Because he covered up sexual assaults.
Kiara. They have listed as their third line center.
Huhar Korea.
Thank you.
Yeah. You were close.
I don't know if he ever plays again.
Yeah, he's dealing with injuries as well. There's a lot of guys.
That was that's a back?
Expected 3 months.
Okay, sorry. He had a massive concussion early this season.
It's a different injury.
Oh, then never mind.
I guess, thankfully. I guess.
He's a guy who gets concussed a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the one positive you can say about Chicago is that they've decided, we're just going to be bad.
Yeah.
Which you got to give them credit that they were finally like, we have to rebuild.
Right.
Because this team was just either not making the playoffs or making the playoffs and losing in the first round.
Being swept by Nashville.
Or somebody. And so you got to give them credit that they've finally been like, okay, let's do a rebuild. Although I still don't agree with trading Alex DeBrincat.
No.
I know that his contract was going to be up after this year anyway.
Even Doc I would have kept.
I would have kept both of them and tried to trade anybody else that you possibly could, including Patrick Kane. But there's rumors around that they traded DeBrincat to try to force Kane to leave.
Because he's got a full no move?
Yes. If he doesn't want to get traded, he's not getting traded. Same thing with Taze, but they're not going to they can't trade Taze anyway.
No, not with that contract and not with his injury history.
Yeah, he played the majority of last season, but 37 points in 71 games.
So
ain't nobody taking that on for anything significant.
This is one of the things when we talk about a lot of people complaining about cap hits because Tave was he an 8-year?
I don't think so.
Or was he longer?
Time is such an illusion to me anymore.
10.5.
Yeah, him and Kane, I believe, signed those contracts the same year, $10.5 million.
So you're underpaying at the beginning half of that contract.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was 8 years.
And
because they would have, if it was 8 years, they would have signed that in 2015.
Which makes sense.
And I think that was the last year they won the Cup.
Yeah.
Because the years after that was the Penguins twice, Washington, St. Louis, Tampa Bay twice, and then this past year was Colorado. Yeah. So
this is the perfect. That's what we're talking about with you're underpaying the front half of the contract, and now
and then you're just whatever.
It's 10.5 for Taves.
But the thing before
Patrick Kane is worth his contract.
Patrick Kane could still produce for a pretty good team. I mean, he had 92 points on a really bad team last year, and now a lot of that was feeding Alex DeBrincat. But 26 goals, 66 assists. Somebody will give you a first round plus for that.
Yeah.
At the trade deadline, at the very least.
Goes to the Rangers, I'm going to be furious.
We'll get to the Rangers later. Chicago's going to be bad. I think they're trying to be bad at this point, which I think is the correct trajectory for them. So
agreed.
I actually think that the way they went about the draft, I think was smart.
Yeah.
I don't agree with trading DeBrincat or Doc, but they got and taking on Mrazek, fine. They got a late first round pick out of that.
With Mrazek as your starting goalie, you are gonna be picking high.
Yeah, Mrazek is Stalock or their top two goalies. Yeah, that's gonna be. That's not gonna be good. That's fine. I think at a certain point, all teams need to be like, we need to rebuild.
Yeah.
And looking at you, Pittsburgh, looking at you, Washington. You're getting to that point.
Both teams are still making the playoffs.
That's true. That's a good point.
We're losing in the first round, but we're still making
the playoffs. So. But yeah, Chicago's going to be bad. But at least I think they realize that they're going to be bad. Next up, we got the Winnipeg Jets, who are kind of an enigma of a team to me.
Oh,
really?
No. To me, they are not. They are bad.
I don't know. They're not going to be really bad, though. I think they're going to be well. Anyway, since last we spoke,
below average.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, probably middle of the pack team. They did re-sign Mason Appleton. They did re-sign Pierre-Luc Dubois, just for 1 year. But
yep. So he's trade bait. He's trade bait.
Probably. Appleton they got 3 years out of, but Pierre-Luc Dubois, in case you guys forgot, I believe we touched this on the last time we recorded back in July, but he doesn't want to be there. He wants to play in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
But why would Montreal trade stuff for him when they can wait? How old is he? 24. When they can wait a couple of years and just sign him in free agency anyway.
Right.
So for free, other than just cap hit, So they re-signed him for 1 year, $6 million, which is fine.
If he plays better, he could be
trade bait.
He could be
depending on how
good
bad,
trade bait.
Depending on how they do this year, but
I mean, there's both rumors in the locker, that both Wheeler and Scheifele are toxic in the locker room.
Are not good leaders in any way.
So that is going to maybe be affecting
That'll be
the team.
interesting to see, yeah. So they did also sign Sam Gagne this past offseason.
Yes, they did.
Just 1 year, $750,000. Other than that, I mean, they really haven't added anything significant to their team. They're trying to roll with basically the same team plus Sam Gagne. Kyle Connor's fantastic.
Kyle Connor's great.
Kyle Connor is fantastic, and honestly, Mark Scheifele is a very good player too. He's over a point per game player last year. Wheeler can still score as well, but it's more that those guys are apparently douchebags, and nobody in the locker room really likes them, especially Wheeler, from what I have read.
But he's the captain, so
yeah.
So
I mean, they got a new coach this year in Rick Bowness, so maybe that'll help. Maybe.
Hopefully.
I don't know.
Manitoba needs something.
I think that
Winnipeg Zoo's great.
At least you got that going for you, Manitoba. Go to the Winnipeg Zoo.
Assiniboine, I think that's what it's called.
The zoo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll probably miss the playoffs this year. So, especially since they're rolling with the same team they had last year. It's just
they didn't make the playoffs last year, so.
And they're asking too much of Connor Hellebuck at this time. He played 66 games last year, and his numbers aren't terrible, but
if
I don't know. You look at their defense with Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Dylan, and Schmidt, and you're like, oh.
I love Schmidt, but
he hasn't been the same since he got suspended for a half a year for steroids.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. This team, I think, is just going to be spinning its wheels,
but they can if
sixth place in the Central Division, probably
actually decide to blow it up. They could get a lot back. You could get
certainly, because both Scheifele and Wheeler only have 2 years left on their contracts.
You could get something for Scheifele.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know if you trade Wheeler.
I don't know that you could trade. Scheifele, you can definitely trade.
The amount of first-round picks you could get for Hellebuck.
You could, yeah, you could. Oh, Hellebuck only has 2 years left on his contract too. You could. Yeah, you could trade Hellebuck. You could get a lot for him.
You could get a lot for Hellebuck.
A team that has questionable goalies, Toronto, and
you could convince Connor of your plan, keep him long term, and
he is signed through 2026.
Make a good quick rebuild and push.
You could try to do what Calgary did this past offseason, or teams that had fast rebuilds like LA. Yep. LA had a pretty, in the grand scheme of things, LA had a pretty fast rebuild where they have made the playoffs again. I don't know. I think you got to get rid of you got to trade Scheifele probably at the deadline.
We'll just have to see what they're doing.
Maybe retain some of the salary.
We'll just
Who
have to see
knows?
what they're doing.
They could be challenging for a playoff spot too. I don't think so, but
thinking of the teams
before this past year, they had made the playoffs a couple years in a row.
Thinking of the teams in the Central, Minnesota is a drop off.
So is Nashville. So is Dallas.
Exactly. Yeah. So Winnipeg could push.
They could push for that third place spot because there are several teams that made the playoffs this past year, especially in the Central, that we'll get to in a minute. That
what are you doing?
I don't know that you're going to make the playoffs this year. But speaking of those teams, Winnipeg, I'm going to guess not making the playoffs this year. But I could be surprised. Could be surprised. Outside looking in. I wouldn't be shocked necessarily if they made the playoffs, but I wouldn't expect it. Let's talk about a team that I think got better, but they're kind of an enigma of a team as well.
Yeah.
And the Nashville Predators.
Yeah.
So they haven't done a ton since last we spoke. They did re-sign, is it Yakov? Yeah, Yakov Trenin, who is a younger forward on them.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me so much.
Still heard it.
I'm so sorry. They did sign Nito Niederreiter.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
2-year, $4 million per year contract. That's a good signing.
It's a good sign.
24 goals last year. That'll definitely help their depth.
2x4.
Their big ads for this year, obviously Niederreiter. They did add McDonough, in case you guys forgot, on their blue line.
Yep.
Already adding to a stacked blue line that they have.
Defensively, they're good. They're a good defense team.
Oh yeah, it's the
whether
offense
or not
that was
they
really
can
a
score.
question. Philip Forsberg came back in force last year.
Yes, he did.
42 goals,
earned that
84
contract.
assists, and they re-signed him, which I think was smart.
He earned
8.5 over 8 years. Smart. I think it was smart. I think in a couple of years that contract's not going to look that bad.
How many Martin Erads is that worth?
God only knows. A lot of Martin Erads. What did he play? 1 season for the Capitals?
I don't want to talk about
it. So yeah, they got McDonough, who will help their defense. I think he's better than Philip Myers, who they traded him for.
Yep.
Of course, they have UC Saros, and they signed Kevin Lankinen.
How you feeling?
I'm a little drunk from that first episode. Kevin Lankinen to a contract. So those goalies are like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of boom or bust with those goalies.
Uh-huh.
Saros had an all right season last year.
He did.
But, you know, he's kind of been up and down as the years have gone. He's not Peke. But that defense should absolutely help him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with UC Saros and Matthias Ekholm on top of McDonough, who they just added. That should absolutely help them. But the forwards are where the question is. Now, if you remember last season, dear listeners, I said that if Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson played better, they would absolutely make the playoffs, and they did. They did. It's like they were listening.
They were listening.
I mean, Duchene
had a career year.
Duchene had 86 points, 43 goals, 43 assists. Johansson, 26 goals, 37 assists. They both had great seasons. So
Johansson?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's not like there's several other players in the league that are like it's spelled the exact same way, but I say it differently.
Well, Marcus depends on the year.
Oh he makes me so mad. He makes me so mad, Marcus Johansson or Johansson, depending on what year it is.
Johansson.
But adding Niederreiter adds like theoretically 24 plus goals back to the team.
Yep.
You know, give or take maybe 20 to 30 goals into the depth of the team. I would imagine they're really hoping Tolvanen, who is their 23-year-old winger, takes a step forward this year.
I assume he has. Excuse me. Oh my God.
Dude, it's like 1:30 in the afternoon.
And I yawned.
So yeah, I think they'll probably still be a playoff team this year.
Depends on how some other things go.
Yeah, it depends on if Forsberg, Johansson, and Duchesne keep up what they did last year into this season, there's nothing to say that they won't. But you never know.
Who knows?
You know, like they could all score 15 goals this year, and you'd be like, "Oh, Nashville sucks."
Yeah,
you know, because all of their forwards stopped scoring.
It'll be like 1-0 games against.
I think, if my gut feeling is they'll still make the playoffs.
What do you think? Third in the division?
I think they'll be fighting with the Wild for third. I think those. No, you don't think so? Can you hear those sirens in the background, everybody?
Woo.
There's a fire somewhere, probably, or somebody needs an ambulance. But not for me.
The cap hits that Minnesota has.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, we'll get to Minnesota in a moment.
I think Minnesota falls.
Yeah, we'll get to Minnesota in a moment.
Losing Fiala was big.
Taking that into account, I think Nashville could fight for third place. I think they are likely third place.
Okay.
Because unless injuries notwithstanding, I don't think anybody's going to challenge Colorado or
Blues.
St. Louis, for those top two spots. I think they could swap Colorado and St. Louis, depending.
Yeah.
But those top two spots, I think, belong to those two teams, and then everybody else, I think
scraps.
It's either Nashville or Minnesota for third. Like you just said, I guess I would lean more towards Nashville, and then let's talk about fourth place in that division. This past year, it was the Dallas Stars. Shockingly, the Dallas Stars.
Have they not signed Jason Robertson yet?
They have not.
Oh, my God.
They have not. They did sign Jake Ottinger, though. They did sign Ottinger. Now,
I would say Robertson's more important.
I would agree with you. So since we last spoke, they did sign Will Butcher to a 1-year, $750,000 deal. That's whatever. They did sign Ottinger to a 3-year, $4 million. I think that's that is a very good I think
deal.
That's a good deal for Dallas
both.
and Ottinger because realistically, Ottinger played very well in the playoffs. He played okay in the regular season.
Yes. So everyone was talking about Ottinger because of that playoff series, which he played out of his mind.
But I think it was
fine.
I think it was very prudent to keep it to $4 million. Excuse me. 3-year deal. So he's 23 at the moment.
I think it's a very good deal for both.
Oh my God, I have the hiccups now.
Good for you.
Man.
There's always money in the banana history.
Apologize, everybody. They have not signed Jason Robertson yet.
Jesus Christ.
He scored 41 goals for you last year, and you have not re-signed him yet. And he's an RFA.
It's one of those things where one good year does not make a big deal.
No, he scored almost that amount the year before too.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I want to bring up.
He has some consistently. Let's bring him up really quick. Just look at his stat line. Okay, he scored 28 he scored 17 goals the year before in significantly less games. So he did take a big jump this past season. I can't believe you don't even have him to a bridge deal at this point.
I don't understand it.
He scored 51 goals on otherwise pretty underperforming team. You know, you can look at Roope Hintz and Joe Pavelski and say, oh, they had great years too. Fair. Jason Robertson played on the line with them. And you can look at guys like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin who did jack shit last year.
I mean, Pavelski at 37 putting up 27 goals is pretty...
That's insane.
Impressive.
He had 81 points. He played all 82 games. First of all, Pavelski, good on you, bud.
It's his best year, I think, ever.
He's played fantastic. No, I don't think it's his best year ever, but
it's up there.
He's played very well in his older age.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're key additions for this offseason. They did sign Mason Marchment.
And think about their owner who keeps, talking...
I was going to get to that in 1 second.
He keeps pooping on...
I know.
Ben and Seguin for not living up to their contracts.
Their owner
but then,
is like, oh boy. Let me get to his comments in just 1 second.
All right, cool, thank you.
They did sign Marchment and Miller, in case you guys forgot, in the offseason. Marchment had a pretty good year last year.
Very good year.
That's good depth. Miller is a fine defenseman. He's a good third-pairing defenseman.
Marchment, I mean, what did he do?
He had 18 goals, 29 assists in 54 games for...
Florida.
You're right. That's really good. In 54 games, he had 47 points, nearly a point per game.
He got injured down the stretch.
He did, yeah. That's a good signing. Colin Miller, whatever. He had an okay season. He's a fine third-pairing defenseman. They did lose Klingberg, like we talked about in the last episode, to Anaheim.
Yep.
And then Alex Radulov
is gone.
Went to the KHL, so that's not that big of a loss, really.
I think Radulov's contract ended.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, okay.
He just didn't sign in the NHL, which is like he did not have a good season regardless.
No,
so
he hadn't had a good season in a little bit.
That's one of those like addition by subtraction sort of things. So that kind of just freed up a spot for you. I think Dallas is going to fall out of the playoffs. I think they're going to not make the playoffs this year.
With Scott Wedgwood as your backup goalie?
Scott Wedgwood and Jake Ottinger. Ottinger's only 23.
Wedgwood put up as much, like...
Wedgwood did okay last year.
Where was he playing?
In Dallas. He was in Dallas.
Did he play in Arizona before that?
Yes, before that he did.
I'm thinking of Blackwood. That's my bad.
Blackwood was in New Jersey. Let me just double check. Oh, he must have gotten traded to Dallas last year. Okay.
He got traded
from New Jersey to Arizona to Dallas last year.
Cool.
Okay. That clears it up. Yeah.
I knew he played in...
He did play in
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm glad we cleared that up. Yes. Wedgwood is your backup with Ottinger as your starter.
Wedgwood actually played pretty good.
His numbers aren't bad. It's
Arizona.
not terrible. 910 save percentage.
In Arizona.
On a really bad team in Arizona. I think, like we just discussed, Dallas is going to fall out of the playoffs. I feel like they were very close to falling out of the playoffs before.
Mm-hmm.
And with teams like Vegas, who missed it by 1 or 2 points, Vancouver, who should be better.
I don't think the Central sends 5 this year.
I think the Central maybe sends 3 this year. Yeah.
3, maybe 4.
Maybe. That's borderline. I think Dallas falls out. I just don't. They've lost too much. And especially if they don't sign Jason Robertson in before camp or during camp or something, their owner came out and said that he doesn't like paying younger players big contracts because then he doesn't have money for veteran players.
I forgot about that.
I remember that. That was before they re-signed Ottinger.
Yes.
And then he blamed the vets for taking up too much of the cap space. I'm like,
what do you mean?
You signed them to those contracts.
You have to have one or the other. You can't have both.
You signed them to those contracts. You can't say both things. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, no, we're not re-signing Robertson. They have enough cap space to re-sign Robertson.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to give him like $9 million. Give him $9 million. He's 23.
You give him 8 years, $10 million.
Yeah.
Give him 8 years, $10 million.
How much do they have? How much cap space do they have? Would that be able? Oh, they have $6.3 million in cap.
Someone has to offer sheet him.
I would offer sheet Robertson if I was one of the other teams in the league.
I would lose 3 first-round picks for him.
Ooh, baby. They could. I don't even think they would lose that much. They could offer him 7, and they would. I think Dallas would match, but then Dallas would have to offload somebody.
Right.
So Dallas. It would still hurt Dallas to do that.
It would.
Oh man, somebody in the Central Division should really do that. It's just crazy to me. Okay, then fine. Give Robertson 1 year. Give him all the cap space you have.
Yeah.
Give him $6 million for 1 year and be like, do it again. We'll give you a lot next year. You know? And then we'll figure something out. And then next year, we'll lose Pavelski next year. He'll probably retire. He's 38, and he's a free agent. Oh my God, they have Hintz at 3.1, and he's an RFA next year. That's crazy.
Yes.
Oh my God, those Ben and Sagan contracts look horrible.
Because they are.
They really they signed those contracts and then they just like tanked.
And it's not even their fault. Like injuries
realistically, if you look at Sagan's season last year, if he was making $3 million, that's a fine season.
Great season.
That's a pretty good season because he had 24 goals, 25 assists. That's fine. But at $9.85 million, that's horrible.
All right.
That's so much cap space. There's no way that they can get rid of that.
No. I'm trying to think because they lost the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years ago to doubt.
That was a weird Cup final in the COVID shutdown.
And is when you get hot.
Could you imagine if they had won that?
Oh my God!
I feel like the team would be in even worse position if they had won that cup.
But I don't think they would have cared.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't care.
I wouldn't care if I was a Dallas fan. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't care either. But
I can't remember if it was Sagan or Ben who stayed in the locker room for a long time afterwards.
I think it was
the
Ben. Two of them actually played pretty well in the playoffs that season. Yeah,
I think Ben pushed himself through injuries.
Yeah,
and I think Sagan probably also did because
at that point in the season, everybody is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Dallas is pretty ripe to fall out of the playoffs because if you look at their defense, their forwards, if you don't know anything, look pretty good.
Yep.
Especially those top two lines with theoretically they re-signed Robertson at some point with Hintz and Pavelski and Marchment and Ben and Sagan. That looks pretty good, but then you're like, oh, Ben and Sagan had terrible years last year.
Yeah.
Compared to their contracts, especially Jamie Benn. And you look at the rest of their lineup and you're like,
Ben has lost it for years now.
Oh, yeah. This is, 5+ years at this point. Yeah. He's just been like, how did you sign him to that contract?
Right.
And you're stuck with it until 2025. No one's going to trade for that.
And Sagan's 2027.
Sagan's 2020. Unless one of them, and I don't wish this on anybody, unless one of them gets a very long-term injury, and then you can trade it to Arizona or whoever for LTIR money.
Right.
Nobody's going to take those contracts. And the one silver lining you could say about the two of them, pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Pretty healthy players.
Well, I mean, that's to the silver lining of their team, but for Ben, it's to the detriment of others because he try to hurt other players.
I really feel like this team is not going to make the playoffs this year. I think teams like definitely Vegas, maybe Vancouver will overtake them this season. Maybe even Winnipeg might overtake them too. Like I think this team, especially if they don't sign Jason Robertson, is going to plummet.
If they don't sign Jason Robertson, it's over.
Yeah.
It's not even a question.
I assume they will. Because I'm sure that Jason Robertson wants to play this year. But, could you imagine sometime during the next few weeks, next month or so, they trade him to whoever? They're going to be terrible next year. They're going to be really bad. And then you're signaling to Rope Hintz that he should just leave too.
Yep.
And Pavelski should just retire. And then this team should just fall into obscurity for 5 years or something until all of these bad contracts are gone.
Disappear.
Miro Heiskanen's contract is fantastic. He's a really good defenseman, but he's lost in the rest of that defensive core. They have Ryan Suter, who still plays fine.
Again, we just talked about Ottinger. Ottinger's is a great contract, but
I think it is. It's more of a prove-it contract than anything for Ottinger.
Which deserved,
but
honestly.
Maybe he just carries you to the playoffs next year, but then you have to pay him even more in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dallas is going to fall out. I really do, especially compared to the other teams that they have to deal with that are also pushing for playoff spots this year.
Like what? Like what team?
Well, for instance, the St. Louis Blues, who's up next, and all those other teams we mentioned already. So St. Louis technically finished third this past season.
Nathan Walker. That's a top comp right there.
He's the top Aussie in the league. So St. Louis, since last we spoke, they all they really did was sign Klim Kostin.
What's his first name?
Klim.
Wow.
Klim. He's
Where's he
Russian,
from?
I think.
Oh, that
Right?
sounds
Yeah, he
like
is
you
Russian,
come
yeah.
from the middle of Appalachia.
It does kind of, yeah, you're right.
Hi, my name's Clam.
I'm Clam. Maybe he's from Siberia, like the Appalachian of Russia.
Of Russia?
Yeah.
I can't do a southern Russian accent.
I am Klim Kostin. Anyway, they re-signed him to 1 year, $750,000. He's only 23, so that makes sense for him. Didn't have a very good year last year.
No.
They don't have any really big adds to the team this past season. They did re-sign Robert Thomas, like we discussed, I believe,
Yep.
in the season wrap-up last year.
Matchbox 20 has some great albums.
And he's making even more money now.
It's
Because he got
amazing.
I think it was 8x8 or something around there.
I think
that
it
he
was.
got. He had a very good year last year
But he's still on his $2.8 million
for this season.
This season.
Yes, for this season. Their big losses for this year were David Perron and Ville Husso, who both went to Detroit. Now,
Yep.
if you guys remember, St. Louis traded Husso to Detroit, and then he re-signed with Detroit, and Perron just left in free agency.
Yes.
But both of them went to Detroit, who we'll get to them, I believe, in the next episode. That's a very interesting team, Detroit. They added a lot.
I hate the East. Just in general. The
Just
East.
in general, yeah. But St. Louis, even losing those two, I think they're hoping Kostin, or Kostin, however you say it, makes up for the loss of Perron this year.
Right.
It takes a step forward. Perron scored
What is this, like
25 or 30 goals. Huh?
Perron is third or fourth time Perron has left
Yeah,
St. Louis.
I believe, if I'm not correct, he began his career with St. Louis, went to Edmonton, then Pittsburgh, then went back to St. Louis, then Vegas, then back to St. Louis, and now gone again. So
they traded him. St. Louis traded him from St. Louis to Vegas, and then he came back.
Or was he taken? I think he was taken in the expansion draft.
You're right.
I think he was taken in the expansion draft.
Expansion.
So this was the third time Perron had been on St. Louis, which is really funny. So I'm sure he'll end his career in St. Louis.
I'm sure.
After a few years, after his contract's up. But St. Louis is still looking very strong.
Very strong.
They still have Saad. They still have O'Reilly for one more year.
I would say they're guaranteed second in the division.
At least. They might overtake Colorado. Maybe. If Colorado has
a regress,
Stanley Cup hangover, sort of thing.
I forget that.
They did finish like significantly lower than Colorado, but Colorado had like a season for the ages last year, which they topped off with a Stanley Cup win. St. Louis still very good team.
Yes,
absolutely make the playoffs. Injuries, notwithstanding. They still have Jordan Binnington, who had an okay season last year. It was propped up by Ville Husso, but they brought in Thomas Greiss.
They got Vladdy for one more year.
They do have Vladdy for one more year, Tarasenko, that is. They do have O'Reilly for one more year, too, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two big ones going into next offseason. Both of them are unrestricted free agents, so we'll see what happens with that. The thing is, Jordan Kairu is also a restricted free agent next year.
He's going to command some money.
He had 75 points last year in 74 games. So
I don't know what they're going to do with Tarasenko. I think they trade Tarasenko at the deadline.
I don't know.
Keep Kairu.
I don't know. It depends on where they are in the standings. If they're absolutely in the playoffs, they keep Tarasenko. Definitely.
That's fair.
I think they're keeping Kairu regardless.
Yes.
But they might let Tarasenko walk to re-sign Kairu next year. Because Tarasenko is making $7.5 million this year, Kairu $2.8. Going into next offseason, I could see them letting Tarasenko walk and then being like, here, Kairu, have $8 million a year.
Yeah.
I could see that. Now, Where the big question mark is Ryan O'Reilly. I don't know. They definitely don't have anybody to replace him. Now they do have Robert Thomas and Braden Shen as their other two top three centers, but defensively, I don't know that those guys can make up for O'Reilly.
It's whether or not, because O'Reilly
it depends on how much O'Reilly wants.
He'll be 32 next year, so
I could see him being like, no, just give me $5 million or whatever.
Yeah.
If he takes a pay cut, he'll absolutely stay in St. Louis.
Oh yeah.
But it absolutely depends on that.
Yeah.
If he wants more than the 7.5 that he's making right now, then I don't know about that. And now, if they let Tarasenko walk and give Kairu, let's just guess, $8-ish million a year,
right?
That would leave a couple more to give O'Reilly
later,
to give him more money. So theoretically, they could do it if they let Tarasenko walk, but I don't know.
I don't know if I would pay O'Reilly more money just because of his age.
If he's 32 next offseason, I could see that. It depends on the length of the contract, too. If they're like, here's $3 million, or here's a 3-year deal, $5.5 million per year, I'd be like, that's a pretty good contract. That's not bad.
I mean, you could also give him a $3 million 7 or 8-year contract at that same junction.
And I would still be like, that's not a bad contract.
Right.
It depends on the length of the contract. Now, if it's super long at a lower cap hit, that would be fine too. You look at a team like the Penguins who just did that for like Chris Letang, who gave him a ton of years, but like at a way lower cap rate.
Right.
And you're like, that's actually not that bad because, say they sign him say he's 32, they sign him for 8 years. Mm-hmm. Those first 4 years, whatever. Great. At that point, those last 4 years, he might be LTIR.
We're rebuilding anyway.
Yeah, so whatever, But irregardless, St. Louis absolutely going to make the playoffs.
Yes, they are.
Number 2, maybe number 1. I could see them stealing it from Colorado.
I think they're number 2. But
I think they are, but I could see it happening where they snipe off number 1 from Colorado.
I also don't look at the Central at all.
That's fair. I think, here's the thing about Colorado is we'll get to them in a second, but like they have a cup hangover, like that happens every year to whoever won the cup. Where you can't
say it's every year because of like Pittsburgh and Tampa
Bay. No, I'm not saying they won't make the playoffs, but like those years, Tampa Bay I think finished 3rd both of those years they won the cup, and then Pittsburgh I don't think they won the division.
No, they didn't.
Either of those years.
So they didn't win the division the year they first won the cup.
No, true. But like I'm just saying that's my point. I'm not saying that like Colorado's going to miss the playoffs at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying they might drop to 2.
True. True chains.
Speaking of another team in the Central, let's talk about Minnesota. A team that might fall off a bit.
There's no way they're not. They don't have the money to.
No, they don't at all. Minnesota ended up last year number 2 in the Central Division. Excuse me. They didn't do too much since the last time we talked, and before that, they didn't do too much anyway.
Right.
They traded off Fiala, but they did sign Sam Steele to a 1-year, $825K contract.
It's a great name.
Sam Steele, yeah. He unfortunately he was on Anaheim before, but he couldn't like really put it together.
Hockey IQ wise, just doesn't seem there.
Yeah, he's just not really there. He's still young.
Same with Gagne.
How old is Sam Steele? Where is he? He's not very old. He's only 24. But Anaheim, especially Anaheim, let a lot of younger guys walk.
Sonny Milano.
Sonny Milano is another guy who hasn't even been signed yet.
Which says something.
Yeah, it has to give some sort of idea into that kind of player.
Well, with Sonny Milano, there wasn't a lot of defensive effort. There, outside of a couple of very flashy assists for Zegras
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He really was kind of invisible. So it's the same problem. Like, the hockey IQ isn't really
Just
there.
Not there, yeah.
Um,
So we'll see. I'm sure somebody will sign Sonny Milano eventually. Maybe to a PTO.
Once some injuries happen.
Once some injuries happen. I imagine he did enough, Sonny Milano did. He had like 18 goals or something like that. He did enough to get at least a PTO out of somebody.
I would agree, but
we'll see.
The cap is
what it is.
The cap is what it is this year. So GMs are very
they're cagey about how they're signing players right now. So the Wild did sign Sam Steele. They traded Kulikov to Anaheim, like we mentioned in the last episode, for nothing. They don't really have any key additions. I mean, Sam Steele's really the biggest one, I guess.
And he's already listed as a healthy scratch according to Cap Friendly.
According to Cap Friendly, he's already a scratch. So there you go. They did, like I mentioned, traded Fiala, a 33 goal scorer, to the Kings for not a ton.
Nope.
And then they traded Cam Talbot to Ottawa for not a ton either, because they re-signed Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yep.
For the next couple of years. Now, I think that had more to do with, like...
They got Gustafsson for Talbot. That's what they did.
They did, that's true. So Gustafsson, Talbot, honestly, was going to be Marc-Andre Fleury's backup anyway, and he was unhappy. So they were like, okay, whatever. And they traded him for a younger goalie in Philip Gustafsson.
So it's a 1A, 1B thing.
Essentially. In Ottawa.
In Ottawa.
Yeah. It's really funny because Fleury and Gustafsson, both former Penguins.
Yeah.
Former Penguin draft picks.
Gustafsson was.
Gustafsson was also drafted by the Penguins. Anyway, I think they're worse than last year. Minnesota is. I mean, they finished with second with like 115 points or something like that. They're not going to be as good this year, I don't think. They don't have any cap space to do anything.
They have
really
those Parise, and
they're really hurt. Parise and Suter. We're
going to be talking about that for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's going to be bad for at least the next 2 years. Oops, sorry.
As you, wasn't me.
Yeah, no, I know. I was playing with the table. It just doesn't really leave them with much cap space because of those contract buyouts. I believe, is it this year that they're starting to count as like $14 million against their cap?
I think
it's
so.
a ridiculous amount of money. Oh no, this year it's 12.7 million. Next year it's 14.7.
Next 2 years.
Next 2 years is 14.7, and then it drops way down to 1.6. But so for the next 2 years, those cuts are going to look really, really bad.
So the problem is, like, they got Kaprizov and they got Hartman and then they got Zuccarello on the top line. Zuccarello and Hartman end next year.
Yeah.
And if either of those guys want more money, they can't afford to keep them.
Not at all. Because their cap space is going to be minus another $2 million next year.
Yeah.
So I will say, last time we spoke, I believe Kaprizov's visa was in question.
I think now it's fine.
That has been cleared up. So he is, I think, back in the United States. Whatever. His visa has been cleared up now, like we predicted.
He's cool.
He's fine. So he's back in the U.S. now, so he'll be on the Wild next year. So that's anybody that is a Wild fan, don't worry about that. Kaprizov, your superstar player, is fine for next year.
Yep. It's the only thing worth it for that top line. Is the only good thing that they have.
And even that, I'm like, I look at Hartman and I'm like, I don't know. That top line, it's all Kaprizov. All of those points are stacked up by Kaprizov.
I mean, Zuccarello's good.
Zuccarello and Hartman are fine. Zuccarello is old. Hartman is okay. But, like, all of their statistic numbers are propped up by Kaprizov, who had 108 points last year.
Yeah. And he stole a couple of games from the Blues during the playoffs.
Absolutely he did. I do not trust this team.
No,
because
not even a little bit.
Last year they had Fiala to kind of balance it out a little bit, but obviously they don't have Fiala this year, and I would imagine they'll still make the playoffs, but it might be closer than last year for them making the playoffs.
I don't see them making it.
Really? That's interesting.
I think they're either third or fourth, leaning on fourth, and then if the Pacific sends 5, they're out.
Yeah, I think it'll be much harder for them to make the playoffs this year. Yeah. But, I almost forgot to mention, this is the last year for Dumba, too.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. You mentioned Hartman and Zuccarello are free agents in a couple of years, but Dumba is a free agent this year, after this year.
Why did I think he was older than 28?
Nope, he's young. So here's the thing. They're absolutely going to lose Dumba this offseason. He's 28. He's a UFA. They're not going to be able to afford him.
Especially with that shirt giveaway that they're giving?
Yes. I was going to say, on top of that, Minnesota, in a, I believe, since deleted Twitter post.
I don't know.
They tweeted out a Back the Blue giveaway.
So, yeah, they were doing a police appreciation or something like that.
Yeah.
But what they did was they put that thin blue line America flag on their own, wild shirt.
Yep.
Which has been used by white nationalists too,
Yeah, this, if you guys haven't picked up, this podcast is pretty leftist.
Yeah.
It's a leftist hockey podcast.
With all of the work that Matt Dumba has gone into, not necessarily Black Lives Matter specifically, that organization, but
just overall.
Overall.
Yeah.
Also, Minnesota Wild plays in St. Paul, which is the twin city with Minneapolis, is where this all kicked off with.
Yep.
So it's very tone deaf for the Wild.
Super tone deaf.
Do this.
It's super duper tone deaf. So if I was Matt Dumba, I would not be super happy with that. So I would imagine he's not going to sign there next year.
I don't think he comes back.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to come back. But anyway, let's move on to the division champion and Stanley Cup champion, Colorado Avalanche.
Woo!
The only thing they really have done since the last episode of the podcast is they have re-signed Shane Bowers. Their big addition for this offseason was Alex Georgiev.
Yep.
Who's taking over for Kemper in net.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, he's going to be 1A, 1B with Pavel Francouz. Excuse me, I'm burping. They did lose Kadri, Kemper, and, of course, Stanley Cup champion Jack Johnson. This past offseason. Kadri and Kemper, obviously big losses. Jack Johnson, the biggest loss. They're going to be a little worse than next year, but certainly still a playoff team. I think losing Kadri will be bigger than a lot of people think. Unless JT Compher and Alex Newhook, who are their second 2C and 3C respectively, take big step forwards this next season.
Yep.
And obviously, I think their goalies are kind of a question mark at this point too, with Georgiev and Francouz.
I would say.
But here's the thing: after they won the Stanley Cup, who really cares?
Here's the thing: this is for Georgiev, the time to put up or shut up.
Exactly. They re-signed Georgiev to a 3-year deal after trading for him, and this was after Georgiev, I believe, at the beginning of last season, was like, "Oh, I want to be traded because I'm not a starter," and everybody was like, "Okay," and so he was traded. Yeah, other than losing Kadri and Kemper, they're pretty much bringing back the same team. Mm-hmm. So they still should be very, very good.
And Burakovsky, don't forget he's gone.
And Burakovsky, too. I forgot to write that down.
Jack Johnson and Eric Johnson aren't related.
They're brothers. What are you talking about?
thought I looked that up.
They're brothers.
I disagree.
They're 100% brothers. They even look kind of like... What are you talking about?
Don't worry about it. I'm drunk.
We're going to have to take a little bit of a break between these episodes. But the big thing looming for the Colorado Avalanche coming up is the Nathan McKinnon extension. He is a UFA this next year, and they would be stupid to not re-sign him.
Oh.
They will. I think they will.
It depends on the amount of money that...
he just want a cup.
Yeah,
he could be like, I want a cup. McDavid doesn't want a cup. Give me money. That's a fair argument.
I'm not disagreeing. Sorry, there's a lot of like...
You seem to be disagreeing about the Johnson brothers being brothers.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm more just... it's a lot of body language that doesn't translate.
So I think the Avalanche will still be a force to reckon with next year. Still probably top 1 or 2 teams in that division. Maybe even challenging for a cup again. Who knows? But that is the end.
I'm sorry, they're not brothers.
They are brothers. What are you talking about?
They have different parents and they're from different areas.
Anyway, this is the end of the episode. We'll get into this later. They're absolutely brothers. We'll see you in the next episode. Same puck time.
Same puck place.
Bye.
Bye.